Good morning. Welcome to the 2004 Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We're blessed this morning to have a gorgeous day and to have all of you here with us to share it. We'd like to start the program this morning with an invocation by Mr. Roy Gene Evans of the Texas Stampede.
Pray with me, please. Father, we have so much to be thankful for. We thank you for our families. We thank you for this rodeo family. We thank you for these 2004 inductees. Ask your blessings on them and their families, and to the past honorees, Father, that are here, and those that have gone on before us, Father, we honor them also. Father, we pray for wisdom on how to make the sport better and how to honor you in doing so. We pray for these United States of America, Father. We ask your blessings on her and for our troops all over the world. We pray for safety for them and their families. We pray for our athletes in Athens, Greece at the Olympics, Father. We ask safety for them and for all the athletes of the world, that each one of them may do their best, and that we would do our best in this life that you've given us. And these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
And now, if you would please rise for the national anthem performed by Miss Marcy Heroux.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
It's been a great ride for 25 years. The memories, the faces, the accomplishments of Pro Rodeo and the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. 25 memorable years, from a vision to reality. 25 years ago this month, a very special gathering marked opening day and the induction of the first class of honorees into what was the Pro Rodeo Hall of Champions. The history of rodeo and how America's original extreme sport has changed are vividly chronicled here as rodeo continues to grow. And the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame has created its own special memories. Today, a new class is honored. The 25th anniversary inductees. As we celebrate 25 years, it's only fitting that we bring back a champion of the Western way of life who was here on that first opening day. Red Stegall served on the first Hall Board of Directors. He was present as rodeo made its first baby steps into television. and he has continued to be a supporter of rodeo and the Hall of Fame over the years. Recently inducted into the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, and always a friend of rodeo, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Red Steagall.
Oh, thank you. What an honor. And to come here today and see this beautiful facility and think about the things that happened over 25 years ago. About 27 years ago, Dale Smith and Jack Roddy set me down at the convention in Denver and said, we're going to do something very special and we need all the help we can get. And that year we started a dance so that we could show Western music and country music to rodeo committees all over the country. And some of the young acts that we introduced were Mo Bandy and Reba McEntire and George Strait. They went on to have wonderful careers and contribute a tremendous amount to rodeo. And I remember when we came out here the first time, it was just a hill covered with native vegetation. And it was very hard to see how this could evolve from that. But it took a lot of hard work and a lot of dedicated people. I'm reminded of a young man who's out on a West Texas highway, and there's a very unusual experience. It rains. And, you know, we don't get enough rain out there to wash the oil and the rubber off the highways, so they get a little slick when we get a little shower. And he ran his little car off into the ditch, and he buried it plumb up to the hubs. And he tried everything he'd been taught to get that car out, and nothing had happened. He had a blanket in the back seat. He threw under the back wheels, and it didn't work. He had one of those little fold-over Army surplus shovels, and he dug out in front of the front wheels, and that wouldn't work. And he looks over in the pasture about half a mile over there, and he sees a light. So he thought he'd go over there and see what had happened, not knowing what kind of reception he was going to get at 2 o'clock in the morning. But he walks over there and knocks on the door, and the fellow answers the door and he said, I reckon you need some help this time of night. And he said, yes, sir, I do. He said, my little car is stuck and I can't get it out. That feller said, well, if you'll give me a chance to hook up old Buddy, I'll help you. So he went out to the barn, and in a few minutes he came back, and he had this big Clydesdale horse, all harnessed up and had a long chain dragging behind him, and they walked down the lane and hooked it on the front end of that car. This old boy took the reins, and he said, pull, Polly. Nothing happened. He said, pull, Jake. Nothing happened. He said, get up, Dan. The old horse just stood there. He said, pull, Buddy. And that old horse just pulled that car right out of the ditch. This fellow said, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But you got to tell me, why did you call that horse all those other names before you called him Buddy? He said, son, old Buddy's blind. And if he thinks he's the only one pulling, he ain't going to move an inch. There have been an awful lot of folks pulling on the same rope for a long, long time. And we're very blessed that those people 25 years ago had the vision and the foresight to preserve the great American sport of rodeo with a Hall of Fame and exhibits that people all over the world can enjoy and learn about our beloved sport of rodeo. It doesn't happen all by itself. It takes leadership. It takes people working hard every single day to make sure that the dignity of rodeo is protected every turn of the road, and that it is perpetuated in a very graceful and solid way, and that we retain the traditions, the heritage, and the values that got us to this point. We are very fortunate to have a commissioner at the head of our organization who has all of those motives and all of those characteristics to preserve and perpetuate our beloved sport of rodeo. Would you make welcome the Commissioner of Rodeo, Mr. Steve Hatchell.
Well, thank you, Red. Isn't it great to have Red Steagall here? This is very, very special. Not only is he a good friend, but in the typical rodeo fashion, whenever you need some help, the first one to come through the door is red. It's one of the reasons that we have this wonderful building. I have a couple of tasks to do today. And first of all, I'd like to say on behalf of the trustees of the Hall of Fame, the PRCA Board of Directors, we want to say welcome to all of you. This is a record turnout for us. And what's great about this is it's a gathering of the family, the pro rodeo family. And when it happens in rodeo, it happens right here. And so we're very, very honored to have you here today to celebrate our 25th anniversary. I'd like to go through some introductions, and it's important. And as Red pointed out, it takes a lot of people to make a lot of things happen in rodeo. And so if you would go with me as we talk about some of the people that make all of this happen, because rodeo is in a terrific growth mode, and it's not just the staff, but it's the people in rodeo that make it happen. And so if you would take a moment just to say hello, first of all, to the Hall of Fame Board of Trustees with us today. Benny Butler, Terry Sullivan, Hal Littrow, Kelly Wardell, and Harry Vold. If you'd stand, please, so we could recognize you, and thank you for what you do. Thank you. Some members of the Hall of Fame Selection Committee are here today, and let me tell you, they do a marvelous job, and all you have to do is look at this class of 2004, and you see what a marvelous job they do all of the time. In addition to Harry Vold, we've got Ed Kanoki of the Dallas Morning News and Dan Gaddis of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo are here from the Selection Committee. Gentlemen, if you'd please stand as well. Thank you. Thank you, Harry. A lot of special guests, and in fact, one of the frightening things about a day like today is that all of you deserve recognition because rodeo is a big part to you. But we'd like to point out some of the people that have made some things happen that have been very special. First of all, we've talked about Red Stiegel. He was on the first board of directors. He's been with us all of the time. Red is terrific because he's one of those that has a vision and then gets behind it. Next, we'd like to thank, and on your way in through the front, you probably came through a new exhibit that's just 2 weeks old, dedicated to Casey Tibbs. And all of that material that you see out there came from one lady who was gracious enough to turn it over to the Hall of Fame so that we can honor Casey Tibbs as our best. And if you would say hello to Michelle Begovich. And Michelle, thank you. If you'd please stand, and thank you for turning all of those great things over to us. We sure appreciate you very much. A member of the Hall of Fame, and the person very strongly identified as the reason that we're in Las Vegas for the National Finals Rodeo, is Benny Binion. Benny Binion's daughter is here. If you would say hello to Brenda Michaels. Brenda, thank you. In 1978, the operations manager for the Hall of Fame and Museum logged over 124,000 miles and countless hours interviewing champions and collecting memorabilia that provided the foundation for what we now have as the Hall of Fame. Would you please say hello to Kenny Compton? Kenny, thank you. We like to refer to our move into the future as being extremely aggressive, and all of the people that participate in that we view as part of Team Rodeo. From BKD, the accounting firm that keeps us all moving, Brenda Smith. Brenda's in the back. Thank you, Brenda. From Home Robertson Owens, our legal advisor, Steve Smith. Steve, thank you, and Rich Young, thank you so much. The general manager of the National Finals Rodeo and all of our finales, member of the Hall of Fame, Mr. Sean Davis. Sean, thank you, partner. And the new head of the PRCA judging program, which is vital to the success of the PRCA, Mr. John Davis. John, thank you. You've met Roy Gene Evans from the Texas Stampede and what that event means to us. And Roy Gene, it's great to have you with us today. One of the great ambassador programs that we have in rodeo is the Miss Rodeo America program. If you would say hello to the leadership of that organization, Arlene Kensinger, Arlene Worley, and the head of Miss Rodeo America, Rayanna Wadhams, if you'd please stand, and all of the state queens that are represented here today as well. Thank you for what you do. We sure appreciate you. The nice lady sitting to Red's and my right up here is Miss Rodeo America for 2004, and she'll be helping us through this ceremony. And a big thank you for all of the hard work, all the things that she does for us, Miss Darcy Robertson. Darcy. Thank you. Arguably one of the finest sporting events in America is the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo, and our partner in that venture is Las Vegas Events. Two of the representatives of their board that we work closely with are here, the head of Las Vegas Events, Pat Christensen, and board member Berlin Miller. Gentlemen, thank you guys. Great to have you with us. Thank you. The commissioner of College Rodeo, and talk about a growth mode. Under his leadership, they're doing fantastic things. Say hello to John Smith. John, thank you. You've heard us talk often that we can't move ahead without our corporate partners. They're not sponsors, they're partners because they make it happen. They put wind in our sails. We can't move ahead without them because they help us so much. Would you join me in saying hello to some of them here today? The president of Dodge Rodeo, Mr. Steve Gander. Steve? The manager of special events, marketing, Wrangler, Carl Stressman. Thank you, buddy. From Justin Brands, Sports Medicine Program, Crisis Fund, you name it, they're there. Please say hello to their president, Randy Watson, and the director of event marketing, Tom Feller. Thank you, guys. From Coors, and it might be that Peter Coors is the next U.S. Senator from Colorado. We're kind of hoping so. Would you welcome Donna Keffler, Rodeo Event Supervisor, and Tom Hohensee. Thank you both. From Pro Rodeo Films, a new enterprise that we have that produces the videos that many of you order throughout the country. Please say hello to David Galat. And David, thank you for your work here today as well. We invest in a sport that is dangerous, not only from those who stage it, but from the contestants who ride, and making every effort to make this a safe journey for all of us. Would you say hi to a critical part of what we do from specialty program insurers for the Cowboys and for the events, Jerry Ford, Tammy Brown, and Kevin Shoemaker. Thank you all. Thank you, guys. From U.S. Smokeless Tobacco, Mr. Darrell Barron, manager of Western Marketing Promotions. Darrell? We know him as Shoot Boss, too, so. We have a new sponsor, and we are really proud of this sponsor. You're going to meet some people today that you haven't met before. Would you please say hello to an integral part of this, he's a Colonel Thomas Nickerson. He's the Director of Advertising, Public Affairs for the United States Army Accessions Command. He's in charge of the U.S. Army sponsorship for NASCAR, the NHRA, Arena Football, and the High School Football All-Star Game. Would you say hi to Colonel Thomas Nickerson? Nick, where are you? Thank you, buddy. We're starting down the road with a wonderful time with them. With the U.S. Army from Relay Sports that helped Colonel Nickerson are Matt Aris and Tom Tiernan. Thank you both for being here today, guys. I have to get in a plug also for my good buddy, A.G. Myers from the Lazy Arena. A.G., glad you're here today, buddy. Thanks for what you do for rodeo, pal. We do have some members of the PRCA Board of Directors, Mr. Jimmy Powers, Benny Butler, and Kelly Wardell, and we sure appreciate you guys being here. They're working hard on behalf of rodeo. We have many rodeo committees here today, and I'm not going to take the time to go through that, but I want you to know that you are very, very special to us, and thank you for your friendship, and it's wonderful to have you here today. I have one other friend that I want to introduce you to. You've seen us introduce him at the NFR. For the past few years, he's not only been a great friend of rodeo, but he's been a great friend of all of ours. In November, he's leaving his position in his post. And you've seen him from a distance. He means a great deal to the United States. He means a great deal to our freedoms. He means a great deal to everything that we do on a day-to-day basis. He's not in uniform today, and he's got a hat because he's one of us. And he was very kind enough to come and join us. You've heard Bob Tallman introduce him in the past, last few NFRs, but you get a chance to say hello today. Let me tell you a little bit about him. And you've heard Bob do this, and he does it far better than I. But nonetheless, the material is the same. Graduated from the Air Force Academy just up the street here 36 years ago, and he's retiring. His line of work has been to protect us and to keep us safe in this country. President Bush tapped him to head the Pentagon's new Homeland Defense Command, the Northern Command, the only name recommended to President Bush, and he jumped on it. His resume is unbelievable. We all have resumes. This is a resume that you all need to take a look at sometime. 300 missions in Vietnam, Commander, North American Aerospace Command, U.S. Space Command, Air Force Space Command. On September 11th, he's the one who directed NORAD fighters to protect our skies. His job today as the head of Northern Command is to protect the air, land, and sea of the United States. All of it falls under his command. I know them as Ed and Karen. They're great parents. He's a pretty good golfer. They're a wonderful dinner host that I get to join with them a lot. Most of all, I call them one thing, and you need to call them the same. Not only is he General Ed Eberhart and Karen Eberhart, but we call them friends. General and Karen, you would please. Thank you. I think it's fair to say that from all of us to you too, you have an open invitation to the NFR every year. And in fact, we can go so far as to say we command you to be there, sir. I'd be remiss before we get into some of our celebrations if I didn't say thank you to Pat Hildebrand and the Hall of Fame staff for how great the building looks and how great the ceremony is. And so thank you to all you wonderful people. And as I mentioned before, the PRCA staff, they have done a marvelous job. We've gone to another level of doing new things, and so from me to you, as my compadres, and for all of you, what goes on in rodeo, if you'd say thank you to the PRCA staff for all that they do. Well, let's take a moment before we meet our inductees and talk about a couple of things. Today we celebrate our 25th anniversary of the founding of the Hall of Fame and the museum. Imagine, if you will, and let's go back, and you heard Red talk about that this was nothing but a lot of dirt. You could go from the Air Force Academy to downtown and not see a lot of things. In 1978, the pro rodeo world was in 3 offices all over Colorado. Josie and Hugh Bennett have rodeo files in their car trying to keep things together. And the visionary said, let's have one office. Today, it's 100,000 square feet. Colorado Springs says, we're going to make it happen. And while we're at it, let's have a museum and Hall of Fame. For $1.9 million, they made the deal despite the naysayers. This happened in Cheyenne, and it was done on cocktail napkins. Just how Southwest Airlines became a reality, it was done on cocktail napkins. From napkins to reality, from renters to owners, from 3 buildings to 1, from 2 cities to 1. We are now all the custodians of this legacy, the home of the files, the history, and the heart of rodeo. And we need to thank so very many people. The sponsors who believed in this vision. Many, many generous people. The Jasper Ackermans, the Thayer Tutts, the John Burks, the Bud Shepherds, the John Justins, the Bill Herveys, the Mac Baldridges, and many others that it would take us all day to name. Who would have thought today that rodeo, of all sports, would have this wonderful and beautiful facility on 14 acres at the base of Pikes Peak? We can put this building and this structure up against any that are in the National Football League or the NBA and take our place among the great sports programs in the country. We have hosted over 1 million people to the Hall of Fame in 25 years, visitors from every state, from all across Canada. We have been host to every element of the U.S. Congress, senators, representatives, governors, people from all over the world. Because of General Eberhard, we hosted NATO here and Secretary Rumsfeld, 36 countries, 700 people, defense ministers and ambassadors from those countries, right here for a rodeo, right here for a barbecue. Richard Myers, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was here along with other wonderful people who do great things for our country. It's been the site of meetings for NORAD, the United States Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, and the international governing bodies of Olympic sports. The Hall of Fame has been visited by actors and actresses who love this lifestyle. 3 new additions are here that you have to see before you leave. To my left is a new bronze, which completes the entire bronze display that we have here at the Hall of Fame, and it's to Scamper and to Charmaine James. Scamper is a member of the Hall of Fame. John Lopez is the artist. It's a great statue. You should look at it. We talked about Casey Tibbs and the display that's on the inside. More of that to come. And the Las Vegas events people are breathing life into the Hall of Fame, because the next time you come, and you have to come back soon, we will have many, many displays in the NFR section of the Hall of Fame dedicated to the 20th anniversary of the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. The look of the building is terrific. It was featured on CBS Sports last week when they did the International Golf Tournament. On both Saturday and Sunday, they talked that short distance from the golf tournament, go to the PRC and go to the Hall of Fame. The sports news that you have captures the history of what's taken place in this beautiful facility. And where is rodeo today? There are now over 60 million people who watch rodeo on television, growing every year. This past year, according to the Sports Business Journal, we had over 24 million people who went to rodeos, paid tickets to go to rodeos, which put us 7th among all sports. And we had the highest growth capacity and growth rate of any sports. The only ones that are ahead of us are the stick and ball sports. Talk about growth. And our attendance here today is a record attendance. Rodeo is a sport noted because it's made up of individuals. In this building, we are able to create the foundation and to centralize the individuality of this sport. Within all of this is the vision of the future built on a rich history. And all of it's built on the cowboy spirit. We are fortunate to be in Colorado Springs with all of its great leadership, its support and splendor. America the Beautiful was written here, and all you have to do is look up at Pikes Peak and you can see why that became a reality. As we return to our roots in these troubling times, we have so much to be thankful for. We are here to honor the class of 2004, which is a spectacular group of men and women. But because it's our 25th, we wanted this to be very, very special. And with that, we've asked a lot of our past inductees to be here. And I would like to ask at this time if Red Stiegel would come back and go through the list of the inductees who are here. Red?
Thank you, Steve. How about a great big round of applause for Steve Hatchett. What does it mean to be inducted into a Hall of Fame? It means that your colleagues and your peers think that you have done something special that needs to be recognized. And a lot of times you would think, well, that's the pinnacle. Where else is there to go? It actually is a beginning. Because you have the feeling, as an inductee into this hall, that you are somebody special and you have been chosen to represent your chosen profession, and you're part of that profession, to future generations in an attitude that is indicative of the time in which you lived. That's a very honorable position. And I've asked several of you how it feels, and you don't know, you can't explain it. But it is a very special feeling. Those names will be enshrined in this hall as long as this building stands. And I think there's a bunch of us going to make sure it stands a long time, aren't we? We have in the building this afternoon, or in this tent, we'll call it a building, people who contributed to a way of life that we still enjoy, and built an industry and a way of life that have made a whole bunch of us a good living for a long time. And I'd like for you to join me in welcoming the 1979 inductee for the bareback event, Jack Bushbaum. Thank you, Jack. 1997 contract personnel, Bobby Clark. '79 saddle bronc, Sean Davis. 2000 contract personnel, Mr. George Doak. 2001 notables, Doc Etienne. 1997 notables, Eldon Evans. Thank you, Eldon. 1979 contract personnel, the Cajun Kid. Dudley Godin, thank you. 1979 bareback, John Hawkins. 1997 notables, Mr. Bill Hervey, one of our longtime corporate supporters. 1992 saddle broncs, Clint Johnson. 2000 notables, Mr. Cecil Jones. 2002 for bull riding, Gary LeFew. Rodeo Lifetime Achievement Award in 1998, Mr. Sonny Linger. '90, a notable category, Mr. Clem McSpadden. All-around cowboy in 1979, Mr. Larry Mahan. Inducted in 1996 for bull riding, Charlie Sampson. Inducted in 2003, contract personnel, Nancy Shepard. Inducted in 1979, all-around cowboy, Mr. Jim Shoulders. In the notable category in 1999, Mr. Bob Fain. Stock contractor, inducted in 1994, Mr. Harry Vold. Inducted in 2001 in the saddle bronc category, Mr. Guy Weeks. Bareback rider extraordinary, inducted in 1993, Mr. Bruce Ford. Stock contractor. I've already got you, Harry. They got you down twice. We'll give you another round of applause, though. In the contract personnel inducted in 1999, Mr. Hadley Barrett. And I've saved this one for last. Inducted in 1979 in the steer roping, again, was one of the original inductees into this hall, Mr. Shote Webster. Are we ready to go to the 2004 inductees? This is our freshman class, and we're awfully proud of them. Together, they have contributed a tremendous amount to the world of rodeo, to its perpetuation and its preservation. And recognized by the Hall this year for its outstanding enhancement to the sport of rodeo is Pocatello, Idaho, in the Dodge Circuit Finals. Some 20 years after the first National Finals Rodeo was created as a championship for the full-time rodeo contestants, A circuit system was created for the cowboys who were serious about competition but couldn't make it their full-time job. In 1987, the Dodge National Circuit Finals Rodeo was created to offer a championship event for those contestants. You know, it also gives the weekend cowboy an opportunity to compete with world champions and perhaps a chance to be the victor. Today, the DNCFR, held each March at the Holt Arena in Pocatello, Idaho, is a $400,000 plus championship and one of the crown jewels on the Pro Rodeo's annual calendar of events. Since its inception in 1987, Pocatello has held the event, and each year it keeps getting bigger, better, and more prestigious. Congratulations, Pocatello, for your more than 17 years of supporting and enhancing the sport of rodeo.
Colorado Springs this bright and sunny Saturday. You know, I haven't had an opportunity to meet Red personally. Just heard of his title and how great he's been for the sport of rodeo, but I don't know if you felt it in his voice, but I felt it in his heart. His true love for the sport of rodeo. So Red, let's give him a hand for his commitment to our great sport. You know, he leaned over just before ready to start and says, now remember, keep it short. So with that wise counsel from a great man, my name is Dale Alm, and I'm lucky to be the chairman of the Dodge National Circuit Finals Rodeo this year. And it's an honor to be here to not only represent the folks that are with us today, but also about 250 volunteers back in Pocatello, Idaho, that sent their hearts and their appreciation to the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame for this honor. It's great to be here and represent those hardworking volunteers. As you know, many of you have volunteers that spend countless hours and many days in their time to make this sport as great as it is. You know, there's no greater honor than to be held in high esteem with those of your peers. We value the great people that are in this room today. We appreciate the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame Selection Committee for giving us this special opportunity. We appreciate you folks and your vote of support by attending our rodeos, the great contestants, the great support staff from the PRCA, Mr. Jim Nichols and his strength and endurance through all, and of course Commissioner Hatchell that has given us such great guidance in some of the most challenging but yet opportunistic times that we've had for a rodeo. It's great to be included in the 25th anniversary of this great Hall of Fame. I think they need another round of applause, folks, for all of the great work that they've done. I'm especially grateful for this weekend for a group of special folks that actually took the time away from work and drove down to attend this special event with us. If I could have those of the Board of Directors and Committee from the DNCFR, would you please stand and let these folks express appreciation for you being here with us today? Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, as you noticed, our rodeo, our National Finals Championship started in, the initial phase of it started in 1986. And you know, there was a certain group, small group of folks in Pocatello, Idaho that had a dream. They had a dream of a national championship that would give these weekend cowboys and cowgirls a chance to become the best that they could. And today I would like to ask Lana Jean Conroy if she would stand. Ladies and gentlemen, Lana Jean is the leader of the band that made this thing happen for Pocatello. So let's give her a round of applause. She's still our First Lady of Rodeo in Pocatello, Idaho. So we appreciate her coming and being here. You know, I was a little concerned as to what message I might leave here today, and so I felt like the best idea is to look at past inductees, and thanks to Pat Hildebrand, she was kind enough to send me a couple of videos. And one of the consistent things I found was that it seemed like in the lives of these inductees there was a particular phrase or a turning point in their life that helped kind of give them a consistent direction or a focus on the future. And you know, as I looked at those, I thought, you know, as a rodeo committee, what kind of things have we experienced that gave us these special little favorite phrases that maybe keep us focused? And, you know, a couple of things came to mind, and I don't know how many of you know Mr. Jim Nichols, but, you know, he's indemnified in my mind a special phrase that's special to him. It's, just give me a 2-hour rodeo. So, Jim, I want you to know that, you know, in March of this year, after 18 years of trying really hard, we did give Jim a 2-hour rodeo. So we appreciated your concentration there. The second was Commissioner Hatch. He came on board about 1998. He had a special phrase to us. He says, now, Dale, repeat after me, Team Rodeo, Team Rodeo. So, Commissioner, thank you for that great inspiration. And, of course, any of you that have been to our rodeo and traveled into the state of Idaho, you probably hear this thing consistently, and this is good guidance for all, regardless of what diet you're on, but it's eat Idaho potatoes. They're low carb. But, you know, with the subtle help from Commissioner Hatchell, there was kind of a special little discussion we had one day trying to decide where we were headed. And, you know, he said, and I'll quote here, Dale, never forget who you are, why you are here, and where you are going. Know the part you play and play it well. And we want the commissioner and all the fans of rodeo and all of the contestants and everyone here today to know that we will continue as the Dodge National Circuit Farms Rodeo to be the platform for the future champions of the world. So we're really excited. And in the, you know, in 1998, there was a major turning point for our rodeo. And we took the phrase Team Rodeo to a new level. And for just a moment in time, I would appreciate knowing that in our committee we have that team effort. And I'd like to have 3 individuals that captured the moment with me and decided we were taking the rodeo to a new level. I'd like to ask Chairman Emeritus Dee Green to please stand, past Chairman K.T. Anderson, and current President Norm Hill. Folks, this is our team from the DNCFR. And also, in closing, I feel like it would be remiss of me if I didn't pay a special honor to our First Lady of Rodeo. Lorna Jean, would you please come up here and help me accept this recognition of our great rodeo? Ladies and gentlemen, she epitomizes the true spirit of rodeo in the DNCFR. Thank you.
One more time. The Pocatello, Idaho, and the Dodge Circuit Finals. Inducted into the Hall this year in the media category is Dave Smith. Dave Smith, who retired after 23 years as executive sports editor of the Dallas Morning News in April 2004, helped build a nationally recognized sports section and pushed rodeo to the forefront not only as a regional, but also as a national sport. It was because of Dave's many prestigious awards and his recognition of the sport of rodeo that many other large newspapers followed his desire to enhance rodeo. Under Smith's guidance, The Dallas Morning News was one of the first newspapers to cover professional rodeo on par with other professional sports. Sports Day. The Dallas Morning News sports section features a weekly rodeo column, includes rodeo results on the agate page, provides extensive coverage of the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo and the championship events in the Pace Picante Pro Rodeo Series, and produces a mid-year report on the race for World Champions. Smith's career began in 1957 when he was named sports editor of the Marine Corps Air Station's base newspaper, the Windsock. He later served in a similar capacity at newspapers in his native Ohio. That was Mansfield and Ashland. In Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Dallas. He joined the Dallas Morning News as executive sports editor of the Sports Day in 1981, becoming an assistant managing editor in 1983 and deputy managing editor in 1987. Smith was named sports director of the B-Low Publishing Division in 1998. Since 1983, Sports Day has been honored as one of the top 10 daily and Sunday sections by the Associated Press sports editors. Recognized nationally as a sports journalism innovator, Smith is a founder and past president of the Associated Press sports editors, as well as a recipient of their prestigious Red Smith Award in 1990. He was inducted into the Texas Baseball Hall of Fame in 1992 and was recognized by the Dallas All Sports Association with its award for high professional standards and commitment to journalistic principles in 1992. We're honored to induct Dave Smith into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame for his outstanding service and guidance, bringing the sport of rodeo to the level of other professional sports media recognition.
Wow. Thank you very much. As you might have noticed, I was sitting there like a good journalist making all these little notes, figuring that I have so much to say, and then I just realized that the only thing I really have to say is, and this is a cliche, but and you've heard it too many times in the world of sports especially, but for this one moment is the truest cliche I can think of for me, and that is, I'm the luckiest man in the world. God has really blessed me. For 44 years, I have had a job that most people would love to do, which is going to rodeos, to Super Bowls, to baseball, to football, living in the world of sports, helping to chronicle the history of sports. He's also blessed me with one of the most wonderful wives that any man could have for that same 44 years, who is the person who's inspired me. I've had an opportunity to meet great people, make great friends in the world of sports. Everyone from, General, I noticed you laughed at my Marine Corps picture there, by the way. And to age myself, I had an opportunity to make good friends with some great athletes such as Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, Bobby Orr, John Havlicek, coaches Jimmy Johnson, Tom Landry, Byron Nelson, Doak Walker, and so on. But let me say this, that he doesn't like for 44 years I've watched athletes, coaches of all levels, and having an opportunity, thank you, switch it, can you hear that? Still can't. Anyway, the only message I have here today, very briefly, is that, and again, this is so true, watching all these athletes, these coaches, there's no greater athlete, and I have said this long before there was any thought of my being inducted into this Hall of Fame, no greater athlete than the rodeo cowboy. And again, with my 44 years experience, I can say these are athletes who conduct themselves with class, with dignity, and they certainly are the toughest that you can be. So, One final point I'd like to make. Over these years, I also have gotten to know, way back in my Miami days, which is almost centuries ago, much less decades ago, Steve Hatchell. You are blessed. I have over my career gotten to know the Pete Rozells, the David Stearns, the great commissioners. You are blessed with one of the truly great commissioners in the world of sport. Finally, let me just say, again, it's a cliche. I really don't deserve to be here. I'm being honored for basically doing my job. So I'd like to step aside now for the true Hall of Famers. Thank you very much.
David?
Thank you.
We present to you one more time, Dave Smith. Inducted into the Hall this year in the saddle bronc category, Alvin Nelson.
Alvin Nelson was a ranch-raised kid from the Mobridge, South Dakota area. He wanted to be a top bronc rider from the time he was given his own pony at the age of 6. In high school, he wasn't interested in the more popular sports of football and basketball. His full attention was on rodeo. In 1952, he won the South Dakota State High School Saddle Bronc Championship and went on to win the National High School Bronc Riding title. Soon after graduating from high school, he joined the Rodeo Cowboys Association and entered his first rodeo at the National Western in Denver. 3 years later, he was considered one of the best bronc riders in the world. Alvin was riding in the era of such names as Casey Tibbs, Deb Copenhaver, Marty Wood, and Guy Weeks. It wasn't easy for a newcomer to make his mark. In 1957, the 23-year-old Alvin Nelson was making serious advances that appeared might win him a world title. A small man with a boyish smile and a young appearance, he looked more like just another farm kid than a possible world champion bronc rider. That is, until he mounted and came out of the chute in a rodeo arena. In Casper, he drew a horse called Goodbye Now. His friend George Williams said, "It was the rankest horse I ever saw anybody make the whistle on. I don't know how the saddle stayed on, let alone Alvin. The bronc rider's bronc rider. That's what they call him." Alvin had a riding style that was to be reckoned with. Alvin won the World Championship in 1957 and was well on his way to a career in rodeo when he was drafted into the Army and had to give up his life's ambition for a couple of years. When Casey Tibbs won his last World Championship in 1959, Alvin wasn't able to contest with the great champion. But the first rodeo he entered after being released from the Army, he came back with a new start and won the saddle bronc event at Tucson. Alvin continued with an outstanding career for the next 12 years, finally retiring from the saddle bronc event in 1973. He won numerous awards during those years and qualified for the National Finals Rodeo 5 times. Even though Alvin was born in South Dakota, he considered North Dakota home, and until Brad Drummondson won his first world title, Alvin Nelson was the only North Dakota cowboy to win a world title, a distinction which lasted for 23 years. And now, he is only the second North Dakota cowboy to be inducted into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame.
That video don't leave me much to brag about, does it? It's great to see so many of my relatives and friends and neighbors that showed up here, and I sure thank you for coming. And I'd like to thank the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame for inducting me. And a special thank you to Dick Van Dyke for contacting Sean Davis and for Sean to be nominating me for this award. And thank George Williams, Dwight Graham, Delton Emerson, Guy and Joe Weeks, and Jim Van Dyke, Otto Oster, Jim Peterson, and the Mobridge Rodeo Committee for helping a lot to get me in here. And I sure thank the Hall of Fame committee for voting me in. And a big thanks to Pat Hildebrand for all the work she's done on that. And a special thanks for my wife Kay, son Louis, and daughter-in-law Arlene. And a special welcome to our grandson Gad. I have one sister, Anna Sogi, and three brothers, Palmer, Tillman, and Toby. And I thank them all for coming. My sister couldn't make it here, but my brothers did. I was raised on a ranch at Mobridge, South Dakota, and my grandparents were some of the first settlers in the area. And my grandfather homesteaded a few miles south of Mobridge, and my father died when I was 8 years old, and my mother raised 5 children and held the ranch together. And looking back, my rodeo career started in '46. Went to rodeo at Mobridge, and Jack Bushbaum's dad was producing it, and Jack was riding and winning, of course. And Jack's been a great inspiration, helped many young cowboys. After that, my brother Tillman and I rode all the milk cows after every milking, and we had a bunch of shorthorn cross cows, and they was harder to milk than they were to ride. And in 1950, I was 16 years old, and my brother and I were fixing some fence about a mile from home. We had an old cut-down Model A Ford, and just a box and windshield on it. We wasn't supposed to go to any rodeos, but we loaded up and went out through the hills and went to Java, South Dakota, about 40 miles away, and I won second in the cow riding and $17. That was more money than you make milking cows for a week. And, about then, Irv Corkow was starting. He had quite a few rodeos at Blunt, South Dakota. He had 2-3 a year. 50 and 51 went down there and rodeoed for a little. Spring of 52, the first rodeo I went to was at Blunt. Won about 1 second in the bareback ride and won $80. I was on my way then. I thought I'd never see another hard day. And then after that, I'd won the high school rodeo at Rapid, and later the National High School Rodeo at Augusta, Montana. I went to some of the amateur rodeos in South Dakota and competed with the fathers, some of the present-day great bronc riders like Longbreak and Reeves and Lamel and Etbars, and knew them fellows. At one rodeo, some guy got hurt in the bareback riding, and couldn't get on. He was in the cow riding, so he had me pay his entry fees and ride his cow, and I ended up splitting first and second with myself. It was a pretty good deal. And in the fall of '52, I won the bronc riding at Faith, South Dakota, and it was the RCA rodeo, and that impressed a few people. And Cliff Desarda, Mobile Rodeo committee man, entered me at Denver, and so I joined the RCA and went to Denver that year. And I rode all my horses. That spring, Otto Oster and Wes Allerdings and I went to Medora and Belfield and Hettinger, North Dakota. And after Hettinger, Jim Tesher asked me to go home with him, help him gather cows and on the ranch and help him. And we rodeoed then. And I stayed there and rodeoed with them quite a bit. I rodeoed traveled with Dwayne Howard and the Tesher brothers and Joe Chase and Dean Armstrong quite a lot that first year was up there. Later on, some of the great traveling partners was Lyle Smith and Bill Martinelli and Bob Robinson. They was all great friends. And then in 1954, Dwayne and Tom and John Pfeiffer and I went to rodeo at Rochester, New York, and they paid off with the gate money. So everybody, Dwayne and I, we were the last ones go get paid, and they was down to silver. Dwayne had won about $1,000. I'd won about 800. Here we go down the street, and we just got a big sack of money. Middle of the night, we decided, well, we'd take the Western Union and send it home. We looked like a couple of bank robbers going down the street, these money bags. So, but I'd won quite a little at different rodeos, but the big one, first big rodeo I went to where everyone was at Phoenix in '55. I won the broke riding there. That really helped my confidence, and I beat him quite a little after that. In '56, I was splitting a bareback riding, and a horse rolled over on me at bronc riding match at Deer Lodge and crippled me up pretty good. I never did ride bareback horse a lot after that. But my mother used to say there's nothing so bad that it isn't good for something. And it's true, I would have never won the world championship if I hadn't gotten hurt at San Antonio. In '57, I had my draft nose, supposed to go for a physical in March. I was leading the bronc riding up until San Antonio, and the horse, too late, tipped over on me in the chute and ruptured the intestine and kept me out of competition for about 6 weeks, but it kept me out of the Army for a year. And then so I won the bronc riding that year, and then in '58 I went to rodeoed until after Fort Worth, then went to the Army, and I'd went to quite a few rodeos during leave time, win quite a little, and ended up I paid more income tax than I got for Army wages. And then when I got out, I had a real confidence booster because the first rodeo I went to, I won the bronc riding at Tucson. And I'm very grateful for the life of rodeo. It gave me everything I got, my ranch and my friends, and this wonderful day. Thank you.
Good job, Alvin. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
Our newest inductee, Mr. Alvin Davis. Alvin Nelson. Inducted into the hall in the the personnel category is June Ivory.
June Bull Ivory of Pampa, Texas, worked tirelessly for many years to make the sport of rodeo bigger and better. Rodeo secretary, timer, media relations, and grand entries, June did it all. She could be as tough as nails with a heart of gold. She was on hand to unload the first horse at the first 1959 NFR in Dallas. She helped design the secretary forms and judges sheets for the Rodeo Cowboys Association and organized the first rodeo secretary school. June had a flair for color and flashy attire and often carried the American flag during the opening ceremonies of some of rodeo's biggest events. She was the first woman Justin ever selected to appear in an advertisement. As a teenager, she worked for the prominent rodeo contractor Everett Coburn and the World Championship Rodeo Company. June had a fantastic memory for who might have tied a calf or ridden someone's best bucking horse or bull. Her straightforward and no-nonsense ways landed her jobs with all of the big-name stock contractors. June says, one of the hardest rodeos I ever secretaried was the 1968 Hemisphere Texas Youth Rodeo in San Antonio. We had 1,403 entries, 2 go-rounds, and a finals in all events. The committee had told the parents that each kid would be up at least once during a performance. I'm proud to say that all kids were treated accordingly, and no one was left out. In 1954, June joined the RCA and also met and married Buster Ivory, a well-known professional rodeo contestant.
Buster and June became like peanut butter and jelly. They worked tirelessly to promote the sport of rodeo. Buster and June worked on the research to produce a book on the history of rodeo stock contractors. Again, they worked tirelessly, and on December 6, 1997, the book was unveiled at the Orleans Hotel in Las Vegas during the National Finals Rodeo. If there ever was a vote taken for the true Miss Rodeo America, June Bull Ivory would surely be one of the top nominees. Sometimes outspoken and seeming to be harsh, she had another side that seemed to be like Mother Teresa. June has a heart as big as her home state of Texas, and is a proud Texan through and through. June says, "All I ever wanted to be was a rodeo glamour gal and a rodeo secretary." We're happy to make those dreams come true and induct June Ivory into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame.
Isn't it appropriate that a sound system warbles on June Ivory? I thought it was a classic. I'm Donna McSpadden, and the reason I'm here is because for once June is speechless. I cannot speak for her, but I can speak about her. And I will never get over this. I hope it is on a video, because it's a keeper. Some 40 years ago, I was at a rodeo with Clem in Texas, and Mr. Floyd Bull was sitting on the tailgate of a pickup. And he said, "Little lady, you're a friend of my daughter, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, "You don't seem a thing like her." And I said, "Oh, God, I hope not." June is an original. And I think the things that you can note so much about her, other than what was on the film, is what was not on the film. How many of you who are contract personnel or former contestants, always a friend, can say you've been to every finals in some capacity that there has been, from the National Finals Rodeo to the Indian National Finals Rodeo, National Finals Steer Roping Finals, college finals, high school finals, Texas Junior Rodeo, and all of those things in between. The one thing I've observed in the years I have known June Bull Ivory is she is not at a loss for words. I have watched her take entries, cuss Buster, tell somebody their kid shouldn't be there, tell somebody else she has a baby gift for them as soon as this is over, go time a rodeo, annoy the announcers till they wanted to shut the sound system off, and the best part of it all, when asked a question, she could quote you the rule book better than any stock contractor and better than any contestant. She is a veritable encyclopedia of rodeo information. I know in 1970, when my husband, Clement Spadden, was president of the RCA, if a question arose, sometimes it was easier to get the answers from June and Buster than it was to go to the so-called rule books. In the 18 years that he was general manager of the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City, when it went from being in the red to being in the black and becoming very popular, June and Buster were there. And just a sidebar of what happened outside the sport of rodeo, it's always been my feeling that there must be something for everybody in every capacity, and the NFR Ladies' Day was born. June was one of the 5 founders of that, along with Sharon, Mrs. Jim Shoulders, Nell, Mrs. Everett Shaw, Liz, Mrs. Reg Kessler, and myself. I told Clem the idea, and he said, "That's just fine. You girls do what you want to do, but promise me, Donna, you will not go to the board of directors and ask for a penny. If there's any extra money, it should go to the contestants." We lived with that for 14 years with NFR Ladies' Day. For 14 years for Christmas, I got the NFR Ladies' Day paid off from Clem, and I appreciate that. June Ivory was there every trip. The things that we have sometimes are perishable. Sometimes the greatest things we have are those that are constants. That's the truth with June. And I love the way the 25th anniversary has come up, because when she married Buster in 1954, when he was Secretary of the RCA, began a romance of a lifetime with each other and with the sport. June and Buster had no children of their own. Rodeo was their child, the same that we love, nurture, provide, protect for our child. They did that to the sport of rodeo, and I think you can see that has been reflected in the book, 40 Years of the National Finals. They gave their life, they gave their heart, they gave their time to. Also, in the part of stock contractors, in that wonderful book, there is such a wealth of information within this one person. It's very touching today to recognize that there are 3 good old mayors being honored. Liz Kessler, 3 bars, and June Ivory. I would be remiss if I did also not acknowledge in June's acceptance this little Indian kid from my home county of Craig County in Oklahoma that happens to be kind of a good roper too. It's an experience that June was the first female card holder in the Canadian Rodeo Association. It's an experience that June designed the secretary sheets, the judges' forms, was an instructor at the first secretary school. But what is not amazing is when you look for something in a person who has given their life to a sport as their child, are loyalty, efficiency, and dependability. One year at the National Finals Lady Day, we asked June if she would give the prayer. This was a little out of June's realm at the time. We had 400 women, and many of you were there. Sharon Shoulders is always the lady persona. So she was doing the narration, I was doing the emceeing, and we look at June in front of these women, and some of you in my age group will remember the long line girdles. June is standing right by the microphone, pulling her dress up, reaching under her long line girdle to get her prayer. She gave it. It was good. It touched us all deeply. And at our home in Chelsea, Oklahoma, I have that prayer on a yellow piece of paper that I'll cherish forever. Speaking for June, I can't tell you what's in her heart. Observing June, I can. I know when Kenny Compton made the first display and the information for this, he didn't realize, he knew it was something good, but he didn't realize how good. Today we do. It might be the silver anniversary for this hall. It might be when Reba McEntire sang the national anthem here when this was opened. It was 5 years after she sang the national anthem at the NFR in Oklahoma City. With June Ivory in 54, she married Buster. 25 years later, this hall was created for the nominees. 25 years after that, June Ivory is among those being inducted. She's a class act, she's a lady, and to her, it's her golden anniversary for the golden years you have given her, and she has given you her all. June. by both June and the memory of Buster Ivory. And would all of the members of the Hands Helping a Needy Diva Survive please raise your hand? June.
Well, I can tell the roper off right now, you know, to get ready or do something or get their damn tie caliber rodeo office. But this is wonderful. Thank you. I love you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Huh? This is a great day, huh?
I think it's so great.
Yeah, she is great. It's good.
Sure. So much. Just make 9,300 for the top of it. I got them knocked out. I did. Thank you, dear. Okay, good. Carry it over, Bobby.
June, we love you. June Ivory. Inducted into the hall this year in the team roping category is Asbury Shell. And Frank Shell will be accepting for the family.
At just over 5.5 feet tall and 145 pounds, Asbury Shell certainly didn't fit the profile of a timed event cowboy, but his size didn't keep him from being one of the best in the sport of rodeo. The wiry cowboy came out of Camp Verde, Arizona in the early 1930s to hold his own against tie-down and team ropers twice his size. Known to his friends as Raz, Shell began his career riding bulls and earned a paycheck the very first bull he ever rode. That was enough for Raz. He dismounted and vowed to never ride a bull again. He was focusing his talents on timed events. While his size may have been a disadvantage for other cowboys, it surely wasn't for Shell. He competed in tie-down roping, team roping, and steer roping. He developed a style that often beat the much stronger, bigger cowboys who relied on brute strength. Shell had a way that didn't force things. He was said to have an easy knee in the flank. He tied him standing up. But it was the team roping where he really excelled. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, all heelers came from the hoop or scoop left side. In those days, it was called the California side. The Arizona side, led by Shell, began entering rodeos in California and started roping from the right side. This newer style was beating the Californians at their own game. Asbury, with his new way of roping, won the World Championship in 1937, 1939, and 1952. In addition to his world title, Shell was most proud of his huge win in Salinas in 1952. Roping calves and team roping with his partner John Rose, he won $3,400. An unheard of total from a single rodeo in those days. Yes, Asbury Shell wasn't one of the biggest cowboys to ever hit the road, but he might just be one of the best, and helped revolutionize roping events along the way. And we're very proud to induct the little guy with a big fast loop into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame.
Hi, I'm Frank Shell. I'm Raz's grandson. On behalf of my late granddad and my family, thank you for this recognition. We are honored by this award and the institution it represents. Also, I'd like to give special thanks to my cousin Doug Shell for nominating my granddad and pursuing this with the PRCA. Unfortunately, my father, Eddie Shell, couldn't attend today because of health problems. He was very grateful and moved by this recognition from the PRCA. As some of you may know, my dad also won the World Championship team roping in 1954. I'm very proud of both my granddad and my dad. I have read that my granddad was small, but when I was growing up, it never really occurred to me. I mean, he seemed larger than life, both physically and voicefully. Before I came up to Colorado Springs, I asked my dad what I remembered most about Grampy, what I knew him by. He said that what he remembered most was how much practicing Grampy would make him do when he was a kid. Every day for hours, he would make my dad practice roping and tying until he got it right. And right wasn't just right, it was perfect. Apparently, he knew what he was doing. Unfortunately, I didn't know Grampy during his rodeoing days, but what I remember most about Grampy was every time I went to visit, the first thing that he would say, first thing that would come out of his mouth was, "Frank, are you ever going to be worth a damn?" That's Grampy. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you.
Our newest inductee, Asbury Shell. Inducted into the Hall this year in the stock category is 3 bars.
Great Bay Mare, where did you get your name? Called 3 bars from your bloodline, though the brand that led to fame. Oh, 3 bars, among the greats, your best.
3 bars potential in rodeo was recognized years ago by a man named Bill Macbeth, who first saw her doing her best to get rid of 2 men who were trying to restrain her. He decided then that she would make a good bucking horse and bought 3 bars and entered her in a rodeo. Reg Kessler recalled the look on Bill's face was priceless when that bronc jumped out of the chute and simply stood staring at the crowd. Macbeth decided then that there was no future for the horse. But Kessler, knowing what she was capable of, took a closer look and purchased the horse. He named her 3 bars and booked her debut at the Brooks Rodeo in Alberta.